Welcome back to Reno Running Company for our Phase 2 Intermediate Strength for Runners. So in this video, we're going to add on to what we had in our beginning Strength for Runners video series, just by turning it up a notch. So I'll go through those same movements, but we're just going to add a little variation that's going to help increase your balance, your strength, the connection between your body. So a lot of single leg, single side action in this video. What I'd recommend is you go through about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 days a week, 3 weeks in a row of our beginner series, which we can link to in this video as well, and then progress into this next intermediate strength series. So I always like to start out with the bands. You'll notice if you went through the beginning series, I started with a fairly easy, flexible band here. So this time I'm just going to go to something much thicker. It's just going to challenge that strength in my hips. So we'll go through quickly again, because you've probably seen this movement already from our first video series, but I'm just going to simply put that around the knees. And then I'm going to turn and walk sideways. So again, thinking about my feet just past shoulder width apart, about a quarter squat down. If I'm moving to the left, I'm pushing with my right hip. Moving to the right, I'm pushing with my left. And the most important piece here is to make sure our knees are not collapsing in. So I really think about pushing my knees out as I'm moving laterally. So first one, I'm just going to go sideways here, pushing out those knees. Again, much harder with this band than what we had in the previous video. And then I'm just going to go back. So I like to go about 10 to 12 each direction for step 1 in this series. You'll notice again that I'm doing these barefoot with the correct toes, just good for overall foot health and stability, adding to my balance by doing things barefoot. If that's difficult for you, then just put shoes on and use that as a progression too. Do all these things do all of them with shoes and then progress to barefoot. The next one is going to be forward and backward walks. So now band around the ankles. I think about kind of ripping the ground apart, and that's a special from trainer Matt Pendola. So I'm ripping the ground apart with my feet. And in this one, I'm going up on my heels. So I'm just walking forward, up on my heels. Walk forward, walk forward. And then get to the end. I go about 20 forward. Now I'm gonna go up on my toes and go about 20 back. And I like to think about good posture in my upper body here. Nice, compact arm swing. Think about those elbows going straight back. So straight back elbow, just moving forward and back. And then the last one is the monster walk. So I'll go back up here below the knees. You can go above the knees too, but now I'm just moving sideways. So I bring that foot in and out. In and out. Like always, I'll go forward and then I'll repeat, go backwards. So now backwards. All right, and that's bands. This time intermediate, just a stronger band. So the next step is going to be back to the push-up, but this time with a really cool variation. So in beginner series, we learned about just having that perfect push-up posture, whether you need to be on your knees and having that nice straight line all the way through your body, or if you can advance through to a regular push-up. I wouldn't do the next part of this unless you can do a perfect push-up. So this variation is we're going to push down, and then when we get to the top, we're going to reach. Okay, so key here is I want to keep my hips and lower back as flat as possible. So when I reach, I'm not rolling to the side. I just do a push-up and then reach, and a push-up and then reach. And then for an even more advanced variation, I'll do a hand release push-up and reach. and a hand release push-up and reach. Obviously this gets easier or harder the closer you put or the wider you spread your feet apart. So a little wider stance on your feet, you can balance that a little more easily. I'm just making sure my hips don't shift side to side. After the push-up, I go into planks. We did this in the first video series, of course, but now, instead of just holding this plank position, again, with perfect body alignment, I'm not dipping my hips or rolling them up. I'm staying right here. I'm going to do an up-down. So keeping my back as flat as I can, I'm going to progress up and then down, and then up and then down. I like to alternate. If I go up on my left, then down on my left, and I'll go up on my right and down on my right. And we'll move to the side plank, where before we did it on our elbow. This time I'll do it on my hand and I'll reach up. So just less contact points with the ground here. And then you can even raise that foot if you want. Of course, when you're doing all these, we're looking for that absolutely perfect form. So we don't want to train bad form, we want to train good form. We're looking at stabilizing our core so that our form doesn't break down late into those late stages of whatever running you're doing. So next we're going to move into our squat and deadlift. The first video we just did like a standard squat. This time we're going to do a single leg with a raised foot, so kind of a lunge motion. So we'll head over here to the bench. I like to do these with a weight, so if you have a weight or you've got a bucket full of sand, either works. I'm going to find a spot on the floor where I can comfortably get my rear foot elevated there and have enough space so that my knee doesn't go way over the top of my toe. I want to make sure that my knee and my toe are kind of aligned at the bottom. So I get down as far as I can into that range of motion, and then I think about firing up with that glute. So I'm flexing that glute at the top, firing up. You can do this either way, so you can do your opposite where you've got your left hand holding the weight, right foot down, or you can do both on the same side. So either ipsilateral here, contralateral over there. I like to do it, just go both ways with that. So do a set with the same hand and then a set with the opposite hand, and then I'll switch. I've heard these called suitcase lunges as well. It's kind of like you're holding a suitcase and then lunging down. Again, I'll do about 10 to 12 on each side, each leg. And then we'll progress that into the deadlift. So in the beginner video, we just looked at doing kind of that straight deadlift. Now we're going to change it to a single leg. So again, you can do either contra or ipsilateral, depending on how stable you feel. And what I'll do is I'll just kick that leg back. I do a slight bend in this forward knee, so my right knee, and just get that down. Think about nice flat back, and then just stand up. So bend down, stand up. Or if you have it on the same side, same exact movement, just doing a little bit different for your balance. So down, stand back up, switch to the other side. I really feel the difference in the stability between my two legs with this one. So I have a relatively easy time stabilizing on my right leg. My left foot just doesn't quite have the same balance that my right does. So that's why I like doing these things single-legged if you can, even if you have to put the weight down. So if the weight's challenging for you, just thinking about, you know, that balance, kind of going down and then standing up. Trying, just like in the planks and the push-up and everything that we do, we keep our backs as flat as possible so we're not rolling one side or the other into the movement. And that's the deadlift. All right, so after the deadlift, put the weight away there, and I'll go into glute bridges. So one of, if not the most important muscle in your running mechanics, the glutes. Good to have good glute strength, but also just activation. It's crazy how many runners just really don't activate their glutes when they're running. So last time we did a glute movement with both of our feet down and raising up at the same time. This one, we're just going to challenge that with a variation where we're going to do one at a time. So I'm just moving up with one, really flexing my right glute here. And then with my hands, I can even further challenge the movement by bringing them off the floor and even just kind of trying to balance on the upper part of my back here. So now I'm working that balance and also working that core stability. So we're just pushing up and hold, squeezing that glute. If the single leg is a challenge and you still need to keep your hands on the floor for that added stability, go ahead and do that. If you're progressing and feel comfortable, then you can push up just like that. I like to, again, think of everything nicely in alignment. So, you know, only hold that posture as long as you can without your hips sinking down. So you want to try and keep everything as straight as possible. Cool. And then the final movement in the exercise series is going to be our opposite reach. So we did this before. This is going to be a really, really tiny variation, but extremely difficult and important. So last time we thought about connection with the ground. We've got left hand, right knee, right toes, right foot. And we just went straight out. We're holding that, we're flexing that left glute, and we're thinking about our core stability. The super challenging minor change to that movement is pick up your right foot back here. So now I've only got 2 points of contact instead of 3. So this is my 3 points of contact. Now I'm just gonna pick up that foot and I'm gonna do the same thing with 2 points of contact. And as you can see, as I struggle for balance, it's incredibly difficult to do that. So minor change is going to really change that movement. So I'm just going, you can hold, you can kind of come in, pause, and back out. But you can see it's really, I do these every day and it's still difficult for me to maintain that stability. And of course, you'll have a difference between right or left on how stable you are. So if you can't do that perfect body alignment, keeping your hips nice and flat, I would just keep this with your 3 points of contact. If you feel good and you can go through the movement the same way with just 2 points of contact and get everything nice and flat, then great. But that's a very difficult advanced movement. So that's it. That's what I go through 2 to 3 days a week. That's our intermediate strength for running. Just real good. You're gonna hit pretty much everything in the body there and challenge those weights, challenge the ranges of movement, add in little variations to keep things progressing for you. And this combined with our morning mobility series really will help you stay injury-free. Happy running.